orange lines will develop if it's going to become a female. So if the baby is born with the normal amount of chromosomes, and it's completely normal that it'd be a male because it's an XY, then those purple lines will develop. They'll end up creating testes on the tips of them that descend into the scrotum, and you're a boy. But what happens if, for whatever reason, because of perhaps a problem in your ability to either make testosterone or for the body to understand that there's testosterone in it, it can't evolve? Then you have all the parts of the male, but none of the external features develop. Or conversely, if you're XX supposed to be a female, so those orange lines are supposed to evolve into the fallopian tubes and the ovaries and a typical female, but for whatever reason, you have a lot of testosterone being made because maybe there's a little tumor on one of the adrenal glands on top of the kidney, or the mother could actually have too much testosterone in her body, then it could cause development of external male features, even though inside there's a female. So maybe, Dr. Bohr, we can start with you. What are the criteria you think that parents should use to make the right decision at birth? When they first find out, like Betsy did, the day after delivery, that all things aren't quite the way they're supposed to be.
Well, I think it's incredibly important that people have the opportunity to see their child as healthy and not needing immediate treatment of any kind, to have a healthy intersex baby. But mostly what we're looking for is for people to be able to have time as individuals to grow up enough to be able to make choices about the kind of treatment they want to have, depending on how they feel about themselves sexually. They may choose to be male, they may choose to be female, they may choose to identify as something in between. And all those things have to be seen as healthy and okay.
So I'm going to ask, if you don't mind, some direct questions. Again, I'm a heart surgeon. It's not an area I've studied much. Okay. And I probably have the exact same questions that many in the audience have right now. So how do the sex organs work if they don't evolve completely at the beginning? How does surgery make them functional?
Well, surgery can or can't make them functional. In fact, when we cut into tissue with steel, we're going to leave behind scar tissue. Scar tissue doesn't have good sensation, so they may be less functional than if they've been left alone. And this is one of the things I emphasize to parents of newborns.
But it is possible for someone who's born intersex to have a very functional, full sex life.
Yes, and to have ambiguous genitalia,
despite that.
Absolutely.
Well, also joining us today is Janet. Again, we're going to cover the entire spectrum, I think, of experiences. Janet is also intersex, but she's the mother of 2 children as well. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
Well, this gets back to me to the fundamental issue of what intersex really is. So you have 2 kids. Could you just teach me a little bit about how you conceived them? How difficult was that?
I was born with something called congenital adrenal hyperplasia. It is the most frequently occurring condition that results in a child that doesn't look clearly male or female. When I was born, back in 1957, they did whatever tests they did back then to know that I was reproductively female, and my ambiguity was all external. So there were a fair number of surgeries, but I grew up and had really, not an issue of conceiving and having children.
But I'm trying to actually understand how challenging it must have been to be a little girl and be faced with these kinds of insights into how you were different.
Historically, we don't talk about our bodies. We don't even talk about bodies when they're normal. So having a body that's not normal, I know that my body was a challenge. I knew that there were kind of secrets. There were things we didn't talk about. I knew that I wasn't quite like my brother and not quite like my sister. But I was who I was.
Well, Betsy's going through it right now, and she's going to have some of these conversations over the next couple of years, I guess. What advice would you give her? What would have you benefited from if your parents had these insights?
The first thing I want to tell you is if you have an awesome son, it's because he has an awesome mom. And then you can surgically do all kinds of things, but your child's sex and who that child is inside is in his brain. It is not anywhere else. When we say to all kids, we love you just the way you are.
Yeah.
When you take a child into surgery, and they're repetitive surgeries usually, that's not the message they get. They get, I'm not okay, there's something wrong with me, there's nothing I can do. And when it's your body, it's different. It's very difficult, but your child is well loved, and that is the most that you can do for your child.
So beautifully stated in part, because as technology advances and we can do all kinds of things, forget about intersex. It's true for almost any problem you may be born with. We always have the belief that, hey, we can make you better, but you're beautiful just the way you are. And I
I think so much of it is in our minds that we sometimes don't understand that the outside is just a shell, that cocoon that we often don't pay attention to, but sometimes pay too much attention to. Betsy, it took a lot of effort to get here, and I appreciate that you made those leaps to be on the stage with us to share a story that many women are so ashamed of. If you could, just take a few moments, talk to all of America, because there are a lot of moms out there who are just where you are. They just haven't been able to get past the challenges of understanding where their kids are in life.
The thing I would tell people is to stop and take a deep breath and look at your child and really absorb who your child is as a person lying there. My child hasn't had any medical problems, and I love him the way he is, and I don't want to subject him to scary and painful procedures and separations and things that are unnecessary at this point. And it leaves the door wide open for modern medicine to progress, as I hope it will, because the outcomes aren't so great now anyway with the surgeries that are being done. And it leaves him plenty of time to mature and grow into himself and discover himself and figure out who he wants to be and what he wants to be. I mean, he might change his mind later, and thank God I haven't messed anything up for him if he does. So.
Do you know another parent of an intersex child?
No, and I would love to.
But because 1 in 2,000, how come these connections aren't being made?
I don't think people want to hear about this or talk about it, and I was a little worried about talking about it myself because it's a taboo subject, and my older daughter's 16 and she wouldn't come. She said, God, Mom, what if Nathaniel sees this later and he's so embarrassed? But I'm thinking, too, what if he sees it later and he's proud that we're making strides in the right direction for people that are different?